Welcome to the Two Bridges, One Bypass podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy Woodson. We are lucky today to have Patty McKenna, Executive Director of the Outer Banks Relief Foundation. Enjoy. And we're live.
Yay!
Patty McKenna in the worldwide headquarters of Two Bridges, One Bypass. Can I get the milepost back again?
Yes.
From me?
Thank you for telling me about it.
Yeah, you didn't even know you were famous. So I went to eat over at Garden Deli yesterday for lunch, and I went over there to get an SD card and get my wife something for Valentine's Day. She didn't get me anything, but that's okay.
Ouch.
And so I see the milepost, and actually Matt Walker was in there too. So
he was?
It was full circle. And then there was an article in there about, how did they do it? Something about giving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they sort of kind of beat me to the punch on what I wanted to, Patty's going to help out with today, is kind of outlining what goes on in Dare County when people are in need. And it seems complicated.
It does.
But after I read the article, it helped out a lot. And actually, Patty had sort of clued me in on a few things that helped me out. So Patty, let's start off with whatever dumb question that you want to, but whatever, you can pick one, you can pick two, you can answer them all, but some of them are tough, like favorite movie.
Favorite movie is always hard, right? I have like the childhood favorite movie, the teenage favorite movie, the adult favorite movie.
Right. Then within the genre.
That's right. Because, you don't always have one favorite. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was what I always used to say.
Which one? Gene Wilder?
The old one, yeah.
Okay, of course. Of course.
He was so fun and creative and silly, and I love that. I didn't even see the new one because I didn't want to change my idea about how it should look.
What's the point? Yeah.
Then, Ferris Bueller's Day Off for my teenage favorite.
Right. Was that a John Waters?
What's his name? Hughes. John Hughes.
John Hughes.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like. What's his name? The actor.
Matthew Broderick.
Yes, I like him.
Yeah.
Good actor. Adult movie. Then I get a little artsy.
Yeah, like what?
In college, I had to watch French movies for a French class.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So give us a French movie.
It's a trilogy, and it's in French, a lot of it, but the director's Polish. They're called Red, White, and Blue. Each movie is named for one color of the French flag, and what each color stands for something. And then the movies explore the theme. And there's they're separate movies, standalone, but then there's little nuggets of it overlap that you'll notice
that tie them together.
Yeah, it's cool.
Do you remember what each color of the French flag stands for?
Liberté, fraternité, maybe égalité. I should.
Yeah,
I'll have to check that.
You really should.
You got to Google that.
Here it is. Gosh, I was looking for this article forever. Okay, there it is. So that's kind of my guideline when we get into the serious stuff. What else is on there that the dumb questions?
If I were stranded on a desert island, I would listen to choose electronic dance music because I don't get bored of it. It's like background heartbeat. If I had to choose. You think that's funny?
We listen to it. Not a lot here, but I swear, exactly. It's the perfect background music.
Yeah. It's kind of upbeat.
Yeah.
It's moody a little.
Yeah.
Creates a good vibe.
Yeah. I agree. We had it on this week several times in the office,
Yeah.
and I listened to it a lot at home too. That's
But it's
awesome.
not like something you can sing along to. So
Not typically.
no.
Not typically. Well, that's great. What else you got on there? I'm
Mm-hmm.
interested to hear. Now,
I already have my dream job.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Favorite vacation destination is France.
Hmm.
I'm a Francophile.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You taking the whole family there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who can say why? You know, why do I love all things French? It's silly, but I just love the food. I love the language.
Yeah.
I love the city. I love the countryside. I don't know why.
How fluent are you?
When I studied abroad in college, I used to say I was proficient. You know, definitely not fluent,
Yeah.
but time has passed, and now I'm just
Right.
average.
Yeah. That's tricky, and you're just going to be proficient.
Yeah, unless you go live there. Yeah.
I got you. That's good.
Yeah. I'm definitely neither a morning person nor a night owl. It's hard to be me.
I think I'm the same way. I used to be more of a night owl, but
Yeah.
now I'm neither. I'm just kind of turning into an old person that basically would love to take a nap every afternoon.
Exactly.
Tell you the truth.
Oh, that's the height of luxury.
Work for 2 hours,
Mhm.
maybe go to the gym for an hour, go eat lunch somewhere, and then take a nap, and maybe get up and do something else, and then go to bed.
I know the Spanish siesta. They were onto something.
But they roll late though, and they eat
Yeah,
late.
they do. No, I couldn't keep up.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't know. I'd try it, but it's hard to. Well, what makes me want to go to sleep in the afternoon is eating lunch.
That's true.
If I didn't have a heavy lunch,
The food coma.
For instance, shout out again to Garden Deli. I had a Yeti bowl yesterday with beef and quinoa and blah blah blah. I felt awesome afterwards.
Yeah.
But when I go to certain establishments around here and I eat my whole whatever I get, all my pork belly tacos, and then I have dessert.
Oh no.
Then it's time to take a nap.
It is.
So it depends on what I eat or how bad I want to go to sleep.
Do you have a mattress or a couch in the office?
We have some pretty comfy chairs, but normally people want me to do stuff when we come back to work.
There's that.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in New Jersey, a small town called Homedale. It's in central New Jersey by the shore, so there's some similarities to living here. Had a seasonal feel to it.
So what was the beach that you went to living there?
Oh, I was a Manasquan girl.
I hear you.
Oh,
Okay.
That's all. Only Manasquan.
Okay.
Nothing else.
Yeah.
We all picked our own,
Yeah, I've heard there's like a jetty break or a pier break that people serve.
Yep.
The inlet.
Definitely at the inlet. Yeah, you know it.
Yeah, Jeff James took me there. I think we went there one time for a Christmas party. A guy that he was working with.
No way.
So you lived there your whole life? Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have one brother. He's 2 years younger than I. That's the right grammar. He lives outside of DC in Germantown, Maryland. He's awesome. It's just the two of us, so was my best bud.
Y'all are 2 years apart.
Mm-hmm.
Really, you're probably less than 2 years apart.
His birthday's in January and mine's in February, so we're
Pretty
just
close.
under.
Yeah.
And I never understood when I was little, if his birthday came first, why is he younger than me?
Right, that's a tough one. That's like a great one on a baseball thing. A kid that I never knew Joe DiMaggio had a brother, and they played on two different major league teams. And
I didn't know that.
And there's a story about this kid that wondered, why does Joe DiMaggio's brother play on a different team? Because growing up, you always play on the same team.
Like, did he live somewhere else?
Yeah, or that just baffled that kid.
Hey, before I forget, since it's Valentine's Day, I brought you a little home-baked treat. Apricot bars.
Oh, I love apricot.
Good.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm not very good at cooking nor baking, but this is just kind of my one thing that I make over and over again, so I've gotten better at it.
Well, I'm good at eating. They're excellent, and I absolutely love apricot.
Well, good. Thank you for inviting me here.
Yeah. This is turning into like that skit on Saturday Night Live when they had the what was it called? The
Oh, the
Big Eats.
meatballs?
Yeah,
Or with the
Pete
sweaty
Sweaty.
ball.
I just love your apricots, Patty.
That's right. They're a little. The fuzz is off.
Yeah. They're so succulent in
Yeah.
my mouth.
Yeah.
Well, Patty, you're the best mic talker I think I've had on here. Yeah, I don't know. Jeff did pretty good, but the rest of the people they low talk or something. So you're doing great on the
All right,
mic.
whatever I'm doing, I'll keep doing it.
So growing up, you guys pretty much lived in the same place forever.
Yeah, my whole family's from New Jersey, both sides. And then when it was time to go to college, I wanted to go to the city. So I went to Boston College and loved it. I have a love of cities, even though I'm not sure I'd want to live always in one. Fun to explore. And I studied philosophy and economics. I wanted to be a philosophy professor. I think philosophy and economics are related. They're both sort of like, I want to understand something. Let me make a model of how I think it works and then kind of explore it. Does it really capture what human life is like? Maybe in this way, but not in this way. So it was almost like a way to study life, you know?
Oh, absolutely. So much of a lot of economics is, trying to predict consumer behavior or measure consumer behavior. So yeah, it's totally philosophy. The philosophy of the consumer,
Right,
the philosophy of
exactly.
the producers.
Mm-hmm.
So let's back up a little bit. What did you do in school? Were you drama, horse riding, fencing? What did you get into when you were that age? Cheerleader.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
I tried a little softball. I was okay. But once I found cheerleading, that's where I devoted myself.
Gotcha.
Any other hobbies in part of high school? A little student government. And cheerleading. Yeah, that's what I did.
So were you class president?
I can't even remember. I wasn't the president. I must have been like the secretary.
Right.
Yeah. So we got to plan the prom. That was the special aspect of it. That was why you wanted to do it. We never really made any other important changes. We just
it's difficult.
Hung out.
Change is difficult when you're the student. Yeah.
But I loved my high school. It was about 200 students. Nice size, nice teachers. It was town based. It's funny when you grow up, you think every municipality is organized the same way, but so we have a town government, a town school, not county. So it was very hands-on from the community.
I've kind of picked up on that a little bit going to Jersey with Linnea and visit. Both sides of her family are from more southern Jersey, but I have noticed it very town-centric, which is kind of like here.
Yeah.
Where not so much with the schools, but with
the identity here.
Yeah, there's a town-based thing, which I get. It's a subject for a different podcast of what the lack of coordination between towns over time, the benefit and the not so beneficial things about that. And
can create rivalries.
A uniform developmental scheme, a uniform look, but then I guess the best part of anything is when things are managed at a local level, typically it's more local needs are met instead of, as we know, as you go all the way up to DC, it's hard for DC to craft something that's perfect for everybody. It's easy for Kildova Hills to do something for Kildova Hills.
I know. It's something I think about a lot because there are benefits to decisions being made on a local level. It's a reflection of people's preferences, but then there are some things that are maybe better organized, or like you save money if it's organized at a higher level. And then there's that tension, but you've taken away some of our control. Yeah, but it's more efficient. It's a back and forth.
I've thought about that for first responders around here, for fire and police.
Right.
To have have a firehouse somewhere centralized. It's 3 times the size, and kind of like you said, you start to break things up. It's like schools.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, if Dare County wasn't so spread out, it'd probably have one high school.
Yeah,
Like Gloucester High School
that's
does
true.
where I'm from, which is a lot bigger than both these schools, and it's a huge county, but they only have one school. I don't know how they've kept away from building 2 schools, but it's probably the money.
Right.
Gloucester County gets its share of tourism, but like, you know, per capita, I mean, they're not slaying it like we are, so
Right.
they can't just build another school.
So how many people were in your high school?
That's a good question. I would say we probably graduated definitely no more than 200 kids in our class.
All right.
So let's say we were 800.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
So you still pretty much know everybody.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Which I think is cool.
Especially back then. So were you considering any other colleges than BC?
Oh, I wanted to go to UVA because I just thought it was so beautiful there, but I did not get in. I got into the University of Richmond, so I really did have a love for Virginia, but I ended up choosing Boston.
What year did you graduate?
1988.
Okay. Yeah, I graduated in 86.
Mm-hmm.
U of R.
Yep. I applied to Yale just in case. You gotta, shoot for the stars.
Safety school. Yeah. Right. So tell me about living in Boston while you're in college.
As it turned out, I didn't do my research because Boston College is actually outside the city limits, right in the suburbs in Chapel Hill. Really pretty, but you got to get on the T or take a taxi to get downtown, which I did a lot. I'd go to the ballet and just go see whatever shows in town. But you're always an outsider a little bit when you're a college student in Boston. There's the New Englanders and then there's the students because there's some insane amount of colleges in the Boston area, right? So you kind of knew you were just visiting. Yeah, right. You had to invest a lot more if you were going to stay. Love the accent. And Boston's it's got the nickname The Hub. And it is. You could, in a day trip, you could go to so many cool places. You could go to Newport, Rhode Island. You could go up to Maine. You could go to Vermont. You could ski anywhere you wanted. You could go out to the Berkshires. Just such a cool lifestyle. It's got the mountains, the beach. The weather's tough, though.
Yeah. Yeah, you think that February is bad here and blows northeast. I can't even imagine.
No, just when it was finally the end of winter, it was time to go home.
Shout out to Dave Henderson, who used to be Coast Guard. And I think they tied up in Boston, but they ran out to supply lighthouses.
No way.
12 months out of the year. Can you imagine?
No.
I can't either. Ice forming up on the rails and whatnot. Yeah,
you got to be hardy.
Right. He must have done something really bad not to wind up in Puerto Rico or Florida or something like that.
Yeah,
or at least Virginia.
We got to find a secret.
Send me down to Yorktown.
His secret punishment.
Yeah. When did you first go to France?
As a junior, and I in college. So I just looked through all the programs at the study abroad office, and I wanted to go to the beach, so I picked a town at the beach, and it was called Toulon. And again, didn't do my research. It's a theme. It's the French naval base.
Correct. And that's on the Mediterranean.
It is. Yeah. So it was kind of like saying, I want to go to somewhere beautiful. I'm just going to go plop myself down Hampton Roads, like it's got.
I like sailors.
Exactly. The first thing they taught us is like, this is where the sailors go. You're not allowed here.
Right. And that's where y'all went, right out of the gate. Yeah.
Not really, though, because we were like, it was usually American sailors. We're like, we can see them at home.
Right. We need some French
yes,
sailors.
Exactly.
Spanish sailors.
Exactly.
Because I think the whole world ties up there. The British, everybody.
Yeah.
That's
so
at least
it wasn't like
Western.
getting that authentic French town experience, but that's okay. I lived with a single woman, learned to ask for what I needed, learned to navigate the bus system, go to a local French university for 2 of my classes. Some of the others were at sort of an international school, but I had to navigate, the French university, and then take all those weekend trips. So affordable, just wherever your imagination
Especially
takes
back
you,
then,
just
it
get
was,
on the train.
yeah. So the EU was not a thing then.
No, not yet.
Because now we're talking 91.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, no EU yet.
No, you had to get different currency at each country. So I stayed within Europe. Some people tried to get over to Africa.
But, North Africa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I liked Germany. Really pretty mountains. Never gotten to Scandinavia though either.
That's a lot of distance.
Yeah.
I was shocked. I researched a European trip for the family that we never did, and I thought about, we'll do northern Italy to Paris, and I looked at the distance on the train and the time on the train. It was a lot.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on trains.
Yeah,
a lot of time sleeping.
But yet, that's the cool part. You just do it overnight,
right?
And no cost for a hotel room. You just pay for that was an oversight when my wife and I went to London and then went on to Holland and stayed in Amsterdam. I would have liked to go to Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And but I thought, we're going to lose a lot of that travel time. Like, no, we should have done it at night and just got a sleeping car.
You learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved Heidelberg in Germany. It's like the whole town is centered around the mountain, and everyone's hiking all the time. Really cool.
Yeah. So, eventually, college ends.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you do after that?
I applied to graduate school to get a master's or a PhD in philosophy, and I ended up at Catholic No, sorry. First, I ended up staying at Boston College for 2 years for my master's degree in philosophy. But if you wanted to be an academic, you needed to kind of not spend your whole training at one philosophy department. So I needed to apply somewhere else for a PhD. So I got accepted at Catholic University in Washington, D.C. So after my master's in philosophy, I headed down to Catholic, trying to get my PhD to become a professor, and I actually failed out. I took my first round of exams for the PhD degree, and I actually got a full-out F. They did not pass me. The first time in my life that ever happened. It took me completely by surprise. Didn't even consider the possibility that I would fail.
What's on a philosophy exam at that level?
There are different philosophy department styles, and mine was like a history of philosophy. Some departments might be like, what's the current state of philosophy with what we know about functional MRIs and our neurobiology, how does our mind work? But this was more of a history of Western philosophy. So it was kind of almost like a history of thought exam, What did Occam's razor mean for the Industrial Revolution and philosophers of the modern science, things like that, like a history of thought.
Is it normal for? How far into the PhD program was that given?
So that was when I was done with classes. So I had taken 10 classes, and then the way this department was set up, I would be sitting for 2 exams. Like, they divided the history of thought into 2 parts by date. And I was doing the early, beginning of philosophy to the Middle Ages. And I don't think it's very common for somebody to get that far and fail. I think I was there and not thriving and hanging out by myself a lot and not realizing that I was missing some kind of intellectual community. And so,
yeah,
I didn't, it wasn't, whatever, you try something and you don't find your people and they don't find you. And that's kind of how it was, but I didn't want to give up something I'd started. So probably the signs were there, but instead I just chose to be stubborn and keep trying when I probably knew that I wasn't thriving. Even one time I was in a philosophy class and I either I answered a question that the teacher asked and he goes, "Wow, for a psychology student, I'm surprised that you know that much about philosophy." And I was like, "No, I am in the philosophy department." So it's like, that should have been a sign, right?
Yeah.
Nobody knew who I was, and
Right.
the teacher didn't even think I was part of his department.
And you know, at that level, at that point, at that level and that point, you know, I pictured a PhD program as more of a small unit
Mm-hmm.
where, you know, and I know I have an idealistic, you know, view of this, where you're really, you know, not pulled along, but sort of guided on your path of study.
Absolutely. Usually you have like some mentors. Yeah. And I just never found that. And that was a symptom of where PhD programs in the humanities might be headed, that there are more people who want to get the degree than there are jobs. Mm-hmm. And so I think Catholic kind of said, sure, you can come, but you're kind of going to have to forge your own path. Like, there's more students than we need. You know, no one was begging me to come.
Yeah.
And there's no jobs. So,
yeah.
In hindsight, I'm glad. It happened all for the best. So I left after that. After I failed my exam, I said, okay, I know when to say when. So I'm done. So I got a part-time job editing. And there's lots of editing in the DC area. There's all kinds of government things being published. So I worked for an editing company, and I really liked that. But then a friend introduced me to somebody who was hiring for a nonprofit. It was called Social Compact. It still is. And it is basically a group of people in the lending industry trying to highlight lending in low-income neighborhoods and that has successful business outcomes. So we would do whatever we could to highlight successful private sector investment that had a common good aspect to it. So we would have site visits. You'd take a whole bunch of bank employees and regulators in the banking industry and representatives of from the federal government, congressmen, and take them to visit like the company that takes discarded mattresses and recycles them into something that they can sell. And, you know, it employs people and it makes money and, you know, it works for everybody. So we would do site visits. We would do sort of an award ceremony every year for the best business models that we wanted to showcase and have a big party and celebrate people and ideas. It was funded by, you know, banks have their own charitable foundations, most of them. So that's where the funding came from.
So you learned a little bit about that charitable funding model by, you know, being involved in that. So I think something's really interesting about your path. So where would you have been if that PhD program had come to fruition?
I know. I couldn't live here. If I wanted to pursue a career, and
you may have wound up in the DC area, or you may have wound up somewhere else in the Northeast in a department and in a philosophy department at, you know, Harvard, Yale, Colgate. Who knows where you would have been? Brown, back at BC,
right?
Homecoming. But that's not the way it worked out. You wound up in DC, which I think is very interesting because I know this guy. I think he got a lot of his training in the DC area. And it's funny, you guys might know each other. So it's interesting, I think, that you know, as you put it, you know, you failed. What you thought you wanted to do, which I don't really think is failure. I think failure is when you really want to do something and you quit. But when you find out it's not really what you wanted to do because you were just a kid when you started on the path. and then you grew up, and then you figured out that this is not one. Because if you wanted to do, you would
I
have done
would
it.
have stayed.
You
That's
would have
right.
done it. You would have
Because you're
figured
young
it.
and
That's right.
stubborn, and
That's not failure. That's figuring out what the heck you want to do with your life. But because of that path change, you wind up in the DC area. So tell us a little bit about what goes on. You talked about your your vocational life there. What was going on in your personal life then?
Well, actually, Matt and I met in Boston.
Matt, her
My
now
husband.
husband.
Yep. And after college, he stayed up and did something called the Jesuit Volunteer Corps, where you spend a year as a volunteer.
So when did y'all meet in Boston?
Freshman year.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah, a little different story.
Yeah.
Yeah, we met at a football game, and then we had history class together. And after college, I stayed for my master's degree. He stayed and did social work. Then he waited tables. Then when I got into Catholic, I headed down to DC, and he said, I think I want to go to medical school. And he had been a history major, so he had to re-enroll and go to classes at University of Maryland.
Lots of science classes he'd avoided.
Yep. The hard stuff. And then we stayed in DC for 14 years. So,
right, because he got his training at Georgetown, right?
He did.
Okay. That's how. Okay.
Yep.
So he didn't get there until then. Okay.
Yep.
I thought it was going to be a much more of a Hollywood story. Where
No.
you came there and you met. Okay.
It's a harder story to meet when you're 18 and stick together until you're 30. Well, we got married when we were 25. He was not yet in medical school, but he was about to start.
Gotcha. You figure, yeah, he'll make it. I'll go ahead.
Exactly. Wait, show me that acceptance letter.
Let me call the school.
I'll
get back with you.
These can be forged.
Stay down on.
I'm not that gullible.
All right, that's awesome. So a lot of time in the Northeast.
Yep.
I
went up and down the coast without going west.
Yeah. So, what was some cool things you guys used to like to do in DC?
Oh, we love to go over to the what's it called? The along the C&O Canal, the towpath that would go into around the river. You could climb the rocks. That was big weekend activity. You never get bored of that. There's always something to see out there. You could go flat along the canal, or you could go use your hands a little and hike, and you could do it year round. It's pretty mild up there. Yeah. And we try to do the city stuff, go to the Kennedy Center. And I got to see Marcel Marceau, the mime.
Oh, very French. Yeah. Perfect.
That was a highlight. Oh.
Where did you guys live? I mean, you were there for a while. I mean, you had the years where basically he wasn't making any money. And then you had some years where he was making a little teeny bit of money.
You're right.
Yeah. So where did you live?
So after we got married, we were in Bethesda, Maryland, and Matt would ride his bike to work in Georgetown. He worked before medical school. He worked for 1 year in an orthopedic office, just setting casts, being an assistant. So he'd ride his bike back and forth to work, and I was still in graduate school. I would take the metro over to Catholic. And then when he got into Georgetown, we tried to move as close as we could. Could not afford. Oh, it was hysterical. You'd go to look at an apartment you could afford, and it was the size of this room,
Which is very small, by the way, for those of you that are on iTunes.
You would sleep, eat, and, do everything in the small space. So we were on the fringe of Georgetown. It was called Glover Park, in a basement apartment. And we stayed there. We wanted to have children relatively young, and we didn't think about the logistics or paying bills. So we had kids while Matt was in medical school, and I was working at the nonprofit, Social Compact. And so we had Matthew, and he would just go out. There wasn't really a yard. There was kind of like the alley behind the apartment, and he'd go out there and pick up broken glass and bring it over to me. But, when you're young, you don't care. We would just laugh. We thought it was funny.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a similar experience too with, having kids while you're in the middle of all that stuff. And, a friend of mine, his mom once said, if you wait to have kids until you think you have the money, you'll never have kids. Let's go ahead and
Were
get
you
it.
still in dental school when
Yeah,
your first child was born?
I think I was third year. It was '01. Yeah, so it was February '01. So it was the spring semester of third
Oh my
year when Jay
gosh.
was born, and then not long after, not long after boards, fourth year, found out somehow or another my wife was pregnant again with Andy, and then Andy was born first year of residency.
Hmm.
So,
Sounds just
which was
like
a
us.
lot different, as you know, residency versus,
At least you have a
well,
little income.
yeah, there's a little bit of income there, but for Matt, being in residency was a lot busier than it is for a dental. A dental residency is dentists are kind of lazy. We don't like to work 48 hours straight.
No, maybe you're smart, perhaps.
Well, I don't know.
Who wants to have their physician have been awake for 36 hours? Who thought of that?
I don't know. Not a patient. Not a patient. Yeah, so much to learn though. And that's why I say this a lot. I was like, I hats off to the physicians, because even though your husband's a specialist, but still, as coming up through medical school, I think the whole body is your area of expertise. Not just the mouth. So yeah, always hats off to them. How many years did you say you guys were there?
Yeah, I think we were in DC for 14 years.
14 years.
Yeah, because 4 years of medical school, 5 years of residency, and we must have been there 3 years or 4 years before. Did I do the math right? 5 years before.
Yeah, it's adding up about right. Where did you go when you guys left?
Maybe it's 11 years.
11.
Yeah, probably 11 years.
4 is 9.
Yeah,
2 years before is about 11.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So how did you get out of DC? What made you leave? What decision was made?
My boss at Social Compact was an awesome teacher to me named Lynn Whiteside. And she was very invested in what was called like the community development movement, just ways to make neighborhoods better. That was her field. And she was in her 40s and diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And I had stopped working, and we lived on loans, and I was at home with Matthew and Shane, and she called and said, I have pancreatic cancer. Will you pray for me? And that night, Matt and I were just talking, this doesn't look good. She's so young. What if that happened to you? What would your choices be? What decisions would you make? And I said, I'd go to Paris. And Matt said, I'd go fishing on the Outer Banks. I said, I thought I knew you. You what? And I said, oh, well, we don't have to have a lethal diagnosis to go fishing on the Outer Banks. Matt had 2 years to go till it was time to find a job. And I said, if that makes you that happy, like that's your dying wish, let's do it.
So he had been down here.
Yeah. The DC, he grew up in the DC area, so this was the place to vacation.
Right, for sure. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Huh.
So this was the only place he interviewed, and he came right down right after residency to start working. And the people in DC he trained with thought he was crazy. You'll be back.
No, but it's so fun to go back and visit. And I don't know, you probably have more time now than you used to, but it is like you said earlier about like cities, but like now I don't really want to live there, but it's awesome to go back.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we'll eat Ethiopian tonight.
Exactly. Eat with your hands.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome. Did you hear that tone?
What does that mean? Does that mean good job?
Some kind of a update on the computer.
Mm-hmm.
So that was fortuitous. I mean, that worked out really well, because there couldn't have been. I mean, somebody could have come along 8 months earlier and taken that spot. And
we were so worried.
How many years would have been?
We were so worried, when Jeff Chase said, "Yeah, you can come work here." We're like, "Well, it's still like a year and a half away. What if something goes wrong?" Yeah, we did worry, because it just felt like we so could not wait to get here, because it was also right after little bit after 9/11, and then there was the anthrax scare in DC, and we had to buy plastic and tape and batteries. I don't know what I was going to do with it all. So we just couldn't wait to get out of there. We were counting down the days.
So what year was that?
2005.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So what did that mean for you when you got here? You had 2 children at the time.
3. We did have Fiona up there too.
Gotcha.
Once he was a resident. She was only 1 when we moved here. So, that was like the best days of our life, because we were going from hardly seeing one another to all of a sudden he had a 9-to-5 job. Oh my God.
And a paycheck.
Yeah. And I could hire a babysitter if I wanted. It was awesome. I mean, absence makes the heart grow fonder. We were just like, everything was a thrill. Like, you're coming home for dinner? Oh my God. You're off the whole weekend? This is so cool.
You're home at 6:30?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We thought we had just like found the best, dream place, dream job. Because still some of Matt's colleagues up in DC were still doing the wake up at 5 a.m., come home at 8 p.m. And here we're sort of like, people here have lives. They work hard, but they know that it's okay to have a personal life and have hobbies. And we were sort of like, this is perfection. We were so lucky. We're so lucky this community's here and it welcomed us. Seriously.
Yeah, that's actually a question that was on the question list at the top. Like why do you like living in Dare County?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you just laid out a few things. There's some really well-rounded people that are just not all caught up in,
And you don't know until you compare it to where you came from. Like, you don't have to live that way. You don't have to sit on the Beltway for 2 hours every day. There are people living other ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel so sorry for, I see people that come down for their week, which used to be me growing up. And I think these poor souls have to go home.
Mm-hmm.
All of you can't stay here, but,
well, hey, but that's the struggle that makes me have a job in helping people, is that it's hard to stay here. Mm-hmm. If you choose to stay, you're going to take some risks sometimes, right? And you're not going to make what you make in a city. You're not going to have that job security, the job with benefits.
So what led you to where you are now? Where did you guys got down here? You got settled. Matt got settled, got his feet under him at work. And then when did you start working outside the home?
So I love to read and write. Those are my hobbies for sure. So I had a little stint working for Kathleen Wozniewski at Outer Banks Child, writing some articles. But I think I've always had a curiosity for why I have such a blessed life and other people struggle, right? So I always had a curiosity about, all right, if I were the struggling one, what's my life like? Who's there to help me? I've always kind of, everywhere I've lived, I've tried to understand that. So I tried it here, all right, if I'm struggling, what's the scene like here? And I have a good friend, John Gillum, who had founded the Outer Banks Relief Foundation, and I did a little volunteering at the Relief Foundation, and I asked that question, like, hey, what's going on besides the Relief Foundation? What's here? Because I'm curious. And the person who was directing the Relief Foundation at the time, great guy named Chris Kelly, he said, Patty, it's so interesting you should ask me that, because I'm trying to get together everybody who's in a helping organization, so we meet regularly and really understand the whole safety net and the whole landscape. And will you help me with that project? So that was how I got rolling in around 2009. So I'd been here around 4 years. I'd help him organize these meetings of it. We called it a community services collaborative, and we just all get together, and one person would kind of present, like, all right, what does your organization do? Tell us all. All right, how do we refer to you? Do they call? What's your application? Who's qualified? And then, we'd meet again another quarter later and, switch. And then we'd have a little round table just so we all kind of understood our piece in the whole scene. And so that was a great way to get the lay of the land here. And I got to serve on the board of directors of Interfaith Community Outreach that way and volunteer there. It's a great place to volunteer and meet all the people working hard to lift everyone up. And then got to be on the board of directors of the Relief Foundation. And then the job came open where you could actually get paid to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky enough only 2.5 years ago to get the job that I have now.
Which is the executive director.
I am the executive director at the Outer Banks Relief Foundation.
Right. Okay. And so how many years total were you involved in the different charitable organizations before this job?
So I would say I probably got really into it around 2008 or 9. And so that's 11 years,
Yeah.
11, 12 years.
So, that's bringing a lot to the table as the executive director. And the bottom line is understanding how it all fits together and how it can work efficiently. Kind of like what we were talking about
That's right.
The pros and cons of having a town system and not a more unified.
Oh, you totally hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. So, but it has pros and there's cons, but I think in this case, there's so many more pros than cons to understand how to make the machine work better. Because in the end, people get help faster and there's less waste.
Yeah. Oh, it is. You're so right. I mean, that's probably just true about so much of human life, because you could have the United Way, right? This national organization funneling money down. And then there was corruption. How much of your dollar goes to people? But then again, if you let things just come up from the grassroots, you end up like, why are your names so similar? Does it seem like your missions are the same? And well, because nobody planned this from above. It came, organically.
So I still, Matt Walker's, and I'm giving Matt the credit for this, but I'm not sure if Matt actually wrote this article. Let's see. No, it was Catherine Cousin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Catherine. So Catherine wrote the article about nonprofits here in Outer Banks, and it gave me a little bit of insight into how that goes down, because there are family level needs, and then there are locality level needs, like after Dorian and Ocracoke and Hatteras and other places after that. So compare and contrast what the different nonprofits do given certain situations.
So even though our name is Relief Foundation, we're not storm relief. Any storm related aid, well, let me step back. Any storm related donations of money go to the Community Foundation, because they have a storm relief fund and it's always there. You can donate anytime, but of course donations are going to spike right after a storm. And then it's incumbent upon the Community Foundation to figure out how to get it to people. So just over time and making smart choices, they began working with Interfaith Community Outreach. And so Interfaith Community Outreach would interview people applying for aid and do the due diligence, and because that's what they do every day for families not needing storm relief, but just families needing help. So they kind of like spring into action after a storm. Interfaith Community Outreach does the getting the money in the hands of people. And in this case, more recently, when Ocracoke needed the money, Interfaith Community Outreach helped Ocracoke create their own local interfaith community outreach kind of thing on Ocracoke and just replicate the model rather than having to import people from up here down there. Let people down there use the same business model to get the money out. So that's storm relief. But just every day in Dare County, the very first nonprofit was Hotline, responding to seeing maybe some problems with domestic abuse and violence at home. And so they're like the trailblazers, and they're still amazing asset to the community. I love that they're focusing now on human trafficking and trying to open people's eyes to that. So there's that humming along in Dare County. There's the Department of Social Services humming along, and they have caseworkers that try to help the whole person, the whole family, using all the different programs that are at their disposal. But they don't have every unlimited resources at their disposal. They have, a certain set of state, county, federal programs, that can be implemented there and at the health department. So then, some citizen says, "Oh, there's still some people hurting even after Hotline and social services and the health department. So maybe me and my friends will raise some money for the other needs." So that's happening at the Relief Foundation around the 2000 or so. The ideas are percolating. If somebody gets sick, I don't want them to lose their house. I don't want them to feel the stress of missing work while they're getting their treatments for their cancer. I want to ease their suffering, provide relief. So that was that idea. But also around the same time, there's interfaith community outreach is forming. It's there's something going on at churches, which I was shocked to hear, that somebody would come here on vacation, open up the phone book, and find a list of all the churches and get in their car and drive to each one and ask for assistance and leave with some money. Seriously.
It's a good scam.
Yeah. So, of course, these churches are, loving places and they want to help, but they don't want to be wasting their money. So that was the idea for interfaith community outreach, was all the faiths. Let's have one office so you can look at someone who comes to your door and say, "I do want to help, but it's not going to come from here. You got to go to this one place." And they have the big picture. They're going to sit down with you. They have all our resources. We're all donating, all the churches, and they're going to be efficient about it. And that was the genesis of that interfaith community outreach around the same time as the Relief Foundation. And it's just brilliant. I think it's great. But then as we're all growing and maturing, and as nonprofits, you kind of look back and you say, "Oh, you kind of do the same thing," or you're overlapping a little. So we're still on that journey of how can we be more efficient? Then you have the hospital that comes here and works with the county health department and decides we could use a clinic for people who are uninsured. And so we work with them a lot. And, between all the pieces of expertise, you hope that, you just meet people where they are and try to relieve their suffering, try to get them to where they're helping themselves as best they can.
So when you brought up the hospital,
mm-hmm.
Now that's the community care clinic,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
That's what you're referring to.
Which is an awesome, just amazing community asset.
Yeah. And the hospital has done so much.
Yes.
To make that. It could be said that there's no way to make it happen, but it would have been difficult to make it happen and sustain it and make it operate without the hospital being a huge part of it.
Yep.
And in a way, it's beneficial to the hospital.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Because, they would like to get paid for their services occasionally.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to work for free.
But if there's, and they do a lot,
mm-hmm.
or work for people that pay slow, But
Yep.
some because they have to, some because they can.
Mm-hmm.
But with the community care clinic, you get people which had to qualify. You have to qualify. You have to
Mm-hmm.
prove that you're in need,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's a certain. You can't just come there for well visits and you're awesome. You're 25 and I just want to check up. It's people with diabetes, managing that. So let's focus on that. And think about all the bad things that happen when your diabetes is out of control. Okay, or if you're hypertensive and that's out of control, it leads to hundreds of $1,000s in medical bills down the road. So it's just awesome money, money
Yeah, an
well spent.
investment, right?
Yeah, Sheila Davies and I talked about a story I heard out of, I think it was Delaware, that this one woman was, I guess she's probably a nurse or a counselor that worked with pregnant women.
Mm-hmm.
And if they could keep a child out of the NICU, not only would the child be healthier and the mother be less stressed and blah, 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 but the hundreds of thousands of dollars it would be saved. And as an economist,
Right.
I mean, you hate to put human life in dollar terms, but let's face it, folks, there's only so many dollars to go around. If hospitals are going to operate and be able to stay viable and hire good orthopedic surgeons and good physicians and nurses and administrators, they have to make some money.
Yeah.
And so we have to take care of ourselves, and we need to take care of people that that at the time just don't have the resources to do it, or they are going to be more of a burden on the healthcare system, which makes everything else cost more.
Yeah. How do you look at the dental health the same way, right?
Yeah,
That if your mouth isn't healthy, it can spiral out of control, right?
it can. I think sometimes I think the dental community puts up. I think the dental community. When I was in school, the whole thing was, if you don't keep your gums healthy, all that bacteria spreads to the heart, but it's a disease of inflammation. So
Ah. So your whole body's
yeah,
on alert.
I think the body is probably, if you're not taking care of yourself in general, the inflammation is not necessarily coming from the mouth. It's just there because the nutrition, the sleep, the stress.
Mm-hmm.
You lost your job. Your daughter has, acute myeloid
Mm-hmm.
leukemia. And how am I going to pay for all this?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's when you can't take care of yourself. You can't eat right. You can't sleep. There's no way. It's too much pressure on any one parent or two parents. But take that back to you guys. If you can make, at least somebody can lay their head on the pillow and know they're not going to lose their house.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, check that box off. That's one thing. Now we can focus on going up to Children's Hospital and that kind of stuff, and trying to save their child's life, and that's huge for you guys. But I've seen the community care clinic just do some awesome stuff.
Yeah, I'm so glad that they're here, and I wish more people. I think a lot more people qualify than realize they do, and they should go by. They're awesome.
Yeah, or they think it's not legit, or
Yeah.
they don't, nobody, they don't, it's low grade or whatever. It's not. There are people there that are completely qualified.
Yep.
They get great deals on medications and things like
Yes.
that, which of course
Everyone knows are way too expensive. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just looking through this one. So we touched on Hotline.
Yeah.
We touched on Outer Banks Relief.
Yeah.
And the Outer Banks Community Foundation.
Yep.
And the Community Care Clinic. What are we missing? Anything?
There's so much. There's a lot of cancer support at the hospital. You get plugged in. Even if you're not receiving your cancer treatment at the hospital, give them a call, and there's Hands of Hope that'll come and do things that you didn't realize were going to be such a burden. Like, they'll run and get you some groceries. They'll meet your kids at the bus stop. They'll walk the dog while you're out of town getting your treatment. So the hospital has tons of suggestions to help make a cancer battle a little easier. Let's see what else. I'm looking down my list. Now there's Outer Banks OBX Common Good. If you're saying, I like what I'm hearing about some of these organizations, I wouldn't mind giving a little bit of my expertise and volunteering. there's a website that tries to be the central hub for all volunteer opportunities. OBX Common Good. So you can just check out their website, and they constantly update volunteer opportunities. And they run a calendar, a community calendar, so you can just attend a fundraiser. That's one way to make a difference. Go buy your fish dinner at the fish fry that is supporting a cause you like. So we're in an information world, so that is such a great resource to have OBX Common Good, and they're doing it for free. It's just volunteer run.
That's a good one. We'll definitely put that one in the show notes.
It's a good one. Let's see. You have Port, for drug, New Horizons, it used to be called, but now I think it's called Port Services for substance abuse counseling and mental health counseling. That is a really great, we know that we need help in that area around Dare County. So that's a great service. Room in the Inn is a homeless shelter. It's not open year round. It's open November to April. But every week I get a call. I have someone being released from prison, and he wants to come home to Dare County where he's from, and he has nowhere to sleep. I said, well, there's room in the inn. That's it. Yep, that's it. That's our homeless shelter. We have to support them. It's crazy to think that someone would want to come home, and you know how expensive it is to find an apartment.
Yeah, if you can find it at all.
I know. Let's see. We got food for thought, providing some food where there's food insecure families around here. Can't imagine being hungry, right? I'm looking around my list. The beach food pantry, killer, just so efficient and great. If your budget's tight, hey, why not go by once a month and ease your pocketbook a little and get some help there. There's the Albemarle Commission Area Agency on Aging. They run the Meals on Wheels for seniors.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep. So we have a nice web of people with different areas of expertise, and you put it all together. It can be hard. It's absolutely confusing, no doubt.
Yeah, but you don't have to be confused, because you call Outer Banks Relief,
and everyone knows.
And
there's no wrong door.
They just put you onto it.
Mm-hmm.
And really, you're right. There probably is no wrong door. You could call hotline, and they're like,
yep.
Okay, well, we're going to refer you here.
Mm-hmm.
And but the trouble is, people don't like to ask for help.
No way. I wish I had $1 for every client who said, I've never asked for help before. I'm so embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
Said, come on. You love helping your neighbor, right? And now it's our turn to help you. So sometimes you need to be on that receiving end.
So we talked about you guys a while back, coordinating, bringing it all together and figuring out how it works the most efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
So where does it go from here?
Oh, it's pretty exciting. So like we were saying, there's no wrong door. Somebody shows up at hotline and they'll say, listen, I want you to contact the Relief Foundation. I want you to contact ICO. Sometimes life is overwhelming. You're a little embarrassed to keep repeating your story again and again. And, that's not pleasant. Just because the resource is here doesn't mean it gets used. So that's a problem everywhere. So somebody who was I think it was a guy who was involved in veteran services wanted to create like a platform, an online app to make it easier. Like, here's your list, look it up. It's on your phone. Press that button, call that person. You can email them. And so he created a software platform called Unite Us. And now it's so successful that at the state level, there have been private grants acquired to make it available statewide for free. So I mean, pretty much everyone's got a mobile phone, even the least among us. And in fact, there's a federal program to make sure that everyone has one, because you can't go apply for a job without having a way to be contacted. But anyway, so it's rolling out that I could say, Jimmy, here, what's your text number? What's your number? I'm going to text you a link to the 5 places that I think could really help you. So that's what's going down the pike. And then I can send an email and say, hey, Sheila, I sent Jimmy to you. You know, if he doesn't come, maybe you could reach out to him, and we can all log in and see, you know, what did Jimmy get at the food pantry? What did he get at the community care clinic? All right, you know, ICO paid his rent. Well, I don't need to pay it this month. Come back, see me next month if you need it. So they're trying to use, you know, the technology of today to be more efficient.
So not only being more efficient in contacting people with the resources, but also fraud prevention.
Absolutely, 100%.
Right, and that's important, because we want the money to go to the people who really need it, not the people that take advantage. That's awesome.
I know it's a sore subject, and there are definitely people who take advantage of the system. But my heart melts. Once a month, we'll have somebody who applies because they're sort of like, "Oh my God, I can't work for 4 weeks while, you know, I've had open heart surgery after open heart surgery. I don't understand how I'm going to pay the bills, and I'm never late on my bills, you know?" And so they'll apply, and then we'll call them and say, "You were approved." "Oh, never mind. I think I can make it." You know? So for every one person committing fraud, there are 10 people who, you know, are just sort of like, "Thanks for being there. Keep that money." You know?
Absolutely. But the nice thing about the system that does monitor the different charities and who they're giving to is it's just like then people that are fraudulent, a lot of people that are fraudulent, they're not dumb. And when they know that's in place, they're like, I guess I'll pick on another county.
Right? Yep. It is so true. You got to be smart.
Yeah.
You got to be smart all around.
You got to be smart for the people that are raising the money, and you got to be smart for the people that really, really need it. That's who we're being smart for. Not to be hardcore. I say we, but I mean you guys. That's interesting.
I know. I think it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's constantly changing, just like everywhere. Whatever technology you're using in your office, I'm sure there's always something new coming out. So even in delivery of human services, there's always something new.
But it's always the humans behind it that make it happen.
That is true. And we're a little oasis here. Our 2 bridges and a bypass, and 1 bypass, have this many nonprofits for a community of 30,000 or so is really pretty amazing.
I was going to ask you about that. Whether it seems like we're out of proportion.
I get calls from around the state and into Virginia. Do you know of a relief foundation in my area? You know, and I say, I really don't. I'm sorry. And I will talk to like a service provider, and they'll say, "Oh, thank God, you know, our patient lives in Dare County, because I know they're going to get what they need, you know, to keep healthy or to follow up afterward. If they happen to live 30 miles in another direction, there just don't exist the kind of social or civic organizations. I don't know why. I don't know. I think because we have some wealthy people here who have the time to create these things.
Well, that's a good point. A lot of retirees with ridiculous backgrounds.
Smart people.
Yeah. You used to do what?
Yeah.
You used to run what agency?
I know.
What law enforcement organization? What branch of the military? It's awesome. But one of the things that I wish that we could quantify, but it's impossible. But I guarantee you it's a huge part of why Dare County has so many nonprofit charitable organizations is because that's the root of this area where it was small and people had to help each other because you're
Mm-hmm.
living out on the edge of the continent and you're all alone. And there were, little fishing villages and little ports that, barges would come from here, there, and the other place. And these people had to stick together and had to help each other. And I'm sure it wasn't a utopia. It never is.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like maybe that was the genesis of it all, is just the way it's always been.
Yeah, and I am struck by a lack of caring about social status here. I feel like there's not that kind of us and them, or I mean, there is in a everyone has their. I'm from Hatteras Island. We do things our way here. We look out for our own, sure, but generally, I feel like we're all just we're not sort of like interested in how we're different. We're just more interested in how we're the same.
Yeah, it came up with BJ McAvoy and Sheila Davies, where, and I could say it 3 podcasts straight, some guy in Extra Toughs and Dockers, he could be, going to the rope shop because he's rigging his crab pots, or he could own a multi-million-dollar boat shop. You just don't know.
Yep, and you don't care.
And the same way with the ladies. Same way
Yep.
with the ladies. It might be somebody who's a town commissioner, or it might be somebody who works at Kid Level Grill. Well,
Yeah.
just kind of dress, and that nobody's really worried about status a whole lot. Just
No, and Jimmy, I don't know if that's common other places, but I know from coming from DC,
No.
all our neighbors were just doing what we were doing. If Matt was in medical school, he was surrounded by people going to law school and getting their MBA, and we just weren't ever going to interact with somebody who wasn't doing the same thing we were doing. And then when we moved down here, we just said, "Oh, this is awesome." We're all together, no matter if we're using our hands, making art, waiting tables. I don't care. We're just all neighbors.
Yeah, the speed of life when you're in an urban area like that, everything's just everybody's just hyper busy and hyper into it, and it makes it tough to get out of that.
Yeah, it
Get
does.
out of that.
Even if you want to get out of it, it's tough, right?
And it's hard to know your neighbors.
Yeah, you're hardly home.
Yeah, even if you're home,
And you don't have those hobbies, like you said. You're not at the tackle shop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So, what else do you want to enlighten us on today?
Oh, well, I want to talk about fundraising. The environment. It's really hard with that many nonprofits. We didn't even touch on all the animal welfare nonprofits. I mean, somebody's got to look out for them. Yeah. Those furry pets that we love. So everybody traditionally, so Hotline would make money through their thrift shops, through the Festival of Trees. So you're always hustling to fund, the needs I can't think of any nonprofit that's sort of like, yep, we have all the money we need. Mm-hmm. The need's bigger than the fundraising. So, it's been there was a growth time where you could just be putting on events and really kill it and fund your mission without asking somebody for money. Instead, you were, asking them to buy a ticket, and they get something in return. So it was a little more transactional. But you can only have so many events, right? There are only so many Saturday nights in a year, and there are only so many businesses who can give to your silent auction, which, by the way, the business community, I know they're pestered by all the silent auctions, but they still say yes. They're amazing. They all donate. So, as an organization, about 2016, 4 years ago, the Relief Foundation said, we need to be here forever. We want to be here forever. We want to. Cancer's not going away. I wish it would. Hey, put us out of business, please. But we want to be here for people. How are we going to make sure we are? Usually after the founders have all that enthusiasm and put on great events, but when they move on and the next set of leaders on the board comes in, fundraising through events is hard work. So we at the Relief Foundation wanted to look at ways to diversify the income flow. So we asked the Community Foundation for a grant to help us pay for a fundraising consultant, and they said yes. So I mean, the Community Foundation really just is the engine for all these nonprofits through their grants. So we had a fundraising consultant come from Virginia Beach and sit down and make a plan with us. They did surveys online. They did in-person interviews with past donors to the Relief Foundation, and asked all kinds of questions about, what the community members think of the foundation, where it could improve. Would they outright ask, and would you make donations to keep their work going? At what level? I mean, they were really thorough, and then they come back with a report. All right, here's where your gaps, your weaknesses are. Here's where your strengths are. If you want to fundraise in your community, we think you could fundraise at this level, and if you want to hire us, we'll help you learn how to fundraise better. And so they kind of delivered their report. And after much consternation and back and forth on the board, we went for it and hired them. And they've been teaching us how to fundraise in a way that's maybe not traditionally the way that we have fundraised in our community. It's relationship-based fundraising rather than a transactional-based fundraising. It's sort of one person at a time. I call someone and say, can I have coffee with you and tell you about the Relief Foundation? And then slowly you just build a relationship. It's just very human. If it's something you think once you hear about it you like, can I come back to you in a couple weeks and talk to you about you putting some of your hard-earned money just a little bit aside at a level that's right for you, and we would love it, and we'll keep in touch, and we'll show you what your money's doing. And then I go on to the next person and the next person and the next person. And so we're trying to build a culture of philanthropy rather than buying a ticket.
Right. And I think that's a great idea. And I think guys should ask if you find somebody, like if you ask me, like, whatever you're comfortable giving. And look, I like monthly payments. I've been making monthly payments since forever.
No, because
whether it's my student loan or my car payment, I'm used to month, and I like it versus like hitting me up at the wrong time, and I feel like I don't have $500 for this.
Nope.
But there, I see the benefit. And if it's priced right for me, like a lot of people do with NPR and other things, they just make a monthly thing and it comes out. And I would say to you, well, you should charge people if they really feel strongly enough to give the money. Well, we'd appreciate it if you could, refer somebody to us or
That's right.
go Amway on them, because people, they if they're a giving person, they probably have friends that are giving too, and just network it out, and you get that stream of income that's good for everybody, because it's not transactional, it is personal, and they can see literally what their investment does.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we're coming up on helping, is it 1,000 families since we started. So odds are we've helped somebody you work with, you live near, you're friends with. So it is personal, and it's on us to tell that story to the community, that obviously nobody who's needing assistance wants you to go out and blab their story, but there is a nice way to communicate that, hey, there was a time when I needed a little help, and this organization was there for me, and I'm so glad they are, and hope you'll keep on showing a little love. I like to compare it to the school fundraiser. Like, do you want to go sell candy bars? For the PTA or whatever, or sell wrapping paper? You know what? don't sell anything. You work hard. You're good at what you do, and just write a little check.
Yeah.
It's easier for everybody.
So let me ask you this: you guys, the interfaith.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's aggregate money that comes from congregations.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's an angle for them is the concept of tithing,
Exactly. Yep.
right?
Yep.
So
But of course, you're not going to ever leave money on the table. So little by little, if a company or a person also wants to donate to Interfaith, they're going to do it. So we are still asking from a lot of the same pools. Just the way of the world. But that's the bulk of their funding. Yeah.
I like that idea, and I have to admit, I can't remember who I was talking to. Maybe I was talking to my wife yesterday, and I doubt it. Probably wasn't my wife. We never talk.
That's right.
I'm too busy. But I've gotten letters in the mail from either Interfaith or Community Foundation,
Mhm.
and to tell you the truth, like I didn't even read it. Like I don't know what they do. I don't really get it. I don't know what they do, and
It is confusing. It is not. It's not an easy thing to get your head around. Absolutely not.
well, now it's a little bit easier, I think, the way you laid it out.
Good.
And when you told me that you routinely speak to state and national level organizations about the whole shebang here in Dare County, I was like, that's awesome, because I want to know.
Yeah, and anybody who wants to know can come to the collaborative meetings. And we're all in one room, and you could ask any old question in the world of any of us. We meet quarterly at the Outer Banks Association of Realtors. They donate the room to us. They're really good community partner for doing that. It's a great room. They're a second story meeting, second floor meeting space. This in 2020, we're meeting March 6th, June 5th, September 4th, and December 4th. It's always a Friday from 9 to 10:30. People could call the Relief Foundation to find out more, but they're just it's an informal group. Anyone can walk in the door. It's a great introduction to the landscape of helping groups.
And the Relief Foundation has a website.
We
they
do.
Not?
Yep.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yep. Google
I'll put
us.
that in the show notes, people.
Yeah. Google us.
So, the reason that you're here, the main reason that you're here when you're here now, is because a few weeks ago, Noel Preston declined to be on my podcast.
He did?
And because he's got good sense. He's a quiet guy, and he's one of those people that you walk by in Lowe's and you have no idea who you're standing next to. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But he said, hey, you know what? Patty McKenna would be great. So he threw
me under the bus.
Straight under the bus, and which I think is hilarious.
He knew I'm an attention
I'm not
hound.
coming on, but here are some people you can torture.
And they're not as smart as me, and they'll say yes.
Right, exactly. They'll talk. But yeah, what a great guy, and I bet you he's awesome help. I'm not exactly sure what his role is, but I guess he's a pretty squared away guy.
Yeah, and he's got a long history of trying to of caring about the community. He was super involved in trying to get high speed internet through all of northeastern North Carolina. I mean, fundamental. That's what you need. You can't succeed today without that. So
yeah, he's a high speed guy.
Yep.
He doesn't look like it, but he is. And maybe if we can get enough requests to get him on here, maybe he'll come on.
Wow, wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, the YouTube.
He'll ask you if he can come on.
He'll come begging. He'll be begging.
Right.
And I'll say no the first couple times. I don't know, Noel. I'm kind of booked.
I'm booked,
kind of booked out.
Maybe next year.
Yeah, it'd be a great guy to talk to. He's got a cool history.
Yeah.
All right, Patty, what else you got?
Call 211. It's a phone number. If you're sitting at home and you're sort of like, I have this problem, but I don't even know where to start. 211 is state run. They have a call center in Durham, one in Western North Carolina, and they have a database in front of them of everything, and they'll hook you up. They'll hook you up with things you didn't even know existed. I'm serious. There's a federal program. If you can't afford your cell phone, they'll make sure you can. Who knew?
Yeah, the 211 was actually mentioned in the article in Milepost.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know about that.
Yeah, you can call it from your mobile phone. You can search it online, nc211.org. I mean, it's an information age, right? Got to have the information to start to turn things around if you're in a tough spot.
Yeah, and we're all just several months and one fall off the ladder from a tough spot. That's every one of us.
Yeah. I mean, the stories that I hear in my office, it's every day. That could be me. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I got to be humble, I might think, hey, I don't need help because of choices I made, but come on, a lot of it's because of who I was born to
and dumb luck.
And luck, absolutely. And some people have some bad luck. You just shake your head like, what?
Yeah. Like you said, earlier, maybe at the outset, why is it that I've been so fortunate?
No, there's no answer.
There's no answer.
Exactly.
It's a lot of luck. The zip code you were born in, the parents that you have, you caught the red light, and the other person went through and they got T-boned.
Yep, 100%, 100%. And that the response to that is like, I want to help, right? Yeah. Like it makes no sense. I'll never understand it, so I'll just try to make a little less suffering and a little more joy in my own little way. And everyone does in their own way, The Relief Foundation's one way, but I know everyone's trying to do that every morning when they get up, right?
That's right. Yeah, be cool to somebody today.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was awesome. That was exactly what I wanted to know. And so the 4 listeners that hear this on iTunes, they'll be a little better educated on what Dare County has.
We're going to save 4 seats for them at the next collaborative meeting on March 6th. I want to see, and I want them to say, I heard about you on 2 bridges and 1 bypass.
Shout out.
Mm-hmm.
And bring your checkbook. You can at least write a $20 check. Right?
It is true when we say no donation is too big or too small. It is so true. I mean, look, there are 30,000 or so people. Granted, some of them are children and aren't going to be donating in Dare County. But last year we had 419 donors. Come on. I think we've only begun to scratch the surface of telling our story to people and getting people enthusiastic. And it's not for everyone. Some people just don't see it that way, that the philanthropy needs to be done with a check. There are other ways they give. But for some, this is a great way to reach out.
Yeah. Currently with 3 kids in the house and a job, and for some reason a podcast. Sometimes it's easier to write the check than give the time, and then other times it's better to give the time than the money because it works out better that way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that's the beauty of where we live, right? The United States of America. Yeah, you can join any civic organization you want, and we don't have any lack of them.
Yeah, that's for sure. Hopefully that won't be regulated one day too. So Patty McKenna, Outer Banks Community Foundation.
Relief Foundation.
Community Relief Foundation. See, I'm still confused.
Yeah, the Community Foundation was founded to support good ideas and good students. So they will give you scholarships and they will give nonprofits grants, but they're not going to ever hand Jimmy Woodson a check if he's in trouble.
Got it.
So they're like the mothership hovering above us all, beaming good stuff to us.
Community Foundation over top.
Mm-hmm.
And then Relief Foundation below it.
Mm-hmm.
And does it all spread out horizontally from there, basically?
Yep, exactly.
Got it.
Yeah, okay. So, the Community Foundation can give grants to nonprofits. And they are not in the business of giving money to people, which is why they had to pass it on to ICO to give out that storm relief.
Got it. So 1 hour, 32 minutes, and 14 seconds later, I finally got it figured out.
I don't know. If you come up with a way to help us communicate it better, let me know. I think maybe we need to change our name. That would be a start.
I don't think it matters because the person that dials 211 or the person that listens to this and knows where to find you and to ask for help, you guys will get them straight.
That's right.
As long
You're
as
right.
you can get a hold of
You
somebody.
don't need to say the name. We just need to make you smile and lift you up a little.
Well, thanks for taking a few hours of your busy schedule to talk. And
thank you for being interested.
Yeah. So many interesting people down here to talk to.
So true. I know you're not going to run out of guests.
My 4 subscribers are going to just love all these guests.
Maybe you'll have 5 after today.
Maybe you.
That's right.
All right, so everybody say bye to Patty. She's got to go back to work. So do I.
Oh, I want to just add that I'm so happy that you're doing this. I'm a podcast addict, and I think it's hysterical that you love to talk and that all day long nobody can answer you because they got
I love it.
Something in their mouth. And so this is like, you're like, I've had it. I need to hear people.
So before I let you go, then what podcast do you listen to?
My favorite is Radio Lab. You ever listen to that?
Yeah, I know Radio Lab.
Just like science and any old topic, and they dig in so that you feel that, you're educated on something you never even knew you wanted to know about,
Right. Yeah.
That my friend Helen turned me on to a new one called Terrible Thanks for Asking. And it was founded by this woman who just had one of those crazy things happen, where her husband dies of a brain tumor. Like crazy. And how do you talk about that, right? So she featured her story and then other stories of just, something really bad happened. And I'll tell you about it and how I'm surviving. It's like the most odd idea for something you'd want to listen to, but you just never hear someone really tell you honestly what it's like to go through something like that.
But isn't that sort of the premise behind the show that Ricky Gervais does now? Doesn't he play a man who lost his wife?
That's true.
Maybe he's dying. I can't remember which one. Either way, it's something.
You're like pressing the envelope, right? Of like what you could really.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go check out. I know Radio Lab, and I've heard some of their stuff before. And every now and then I'll shrug off a couple and bring in a couple.
There's so many. Hidden Brain is my other favorite.
Yeah, I've heard of that one too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, there you go, people. There's a couple good podcasts. When you're not listening to this one, you can maybe listen to those.
After this one.
Okay. Patty McKenna, Outer Banks Relief Foundation.
You got it.
Executive Director.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Only top-notch people. Yeah, we're out.
Bye.